Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a link.
Right.
And if it's like
Yeah, we gotta make sure it shows your PowerPoint like that. Okay. This one. There it is. And then assignments. There it goes. Because you were going somewhere you already told me specifically that sounded good to do.
Yes.
The key.
Yes.
Was it the key?
Yes. Xenia Glass and
This
Lock.
one or this one?
The field presentation.
Okay. I mix them up, so I wonder if you guys could mix them up.
Yeah, and it's that link. I'm not sure if it'll.
It'll probably work. You might have to give me access. Let's see here. Request access. And I think you just say yay or nay. Catholic mental health professionals are meeting right now. There's always so many things going on all at once. That's funny. I almost wonder if I should turn that light off because it does glare pretty strong on there for the presentation. And then I had a trauma sensory kit up here that we use with clients in therapy for trauma. So I guess you wanted to use this color of a room. Smells, and then there also is like a rattle that sounded like a baby rattle. Then the crisis text line. Oh, did it work?
So can I like share it to you?
You probably could.
I don't know.
Let's see. I'll try it again.
It's supposed to like pop up.
Oh, it didn't say where you got access or not.
Let me see if I can.
Like it's probably in your Gmail. I'll do two emails for access. It's probably right in your Gmail somewhere. You're like, yes, give access. And that's done. Director of the Center for School-Based Mental Health Programs. Interesting.
This is a very interesting.
If you're not seeing it anywhere, you can try to either
Like
drop it, email. You can log in too. That's fine. You can log in right from here.
Sorry.
That one's not signed in. Yeah, or you can sign me out. Well, let's turn off the light because that glare is horrible.
Okay.
For your presentation. Is that going to mess you guys up?
No.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
It's dark though. Somebody's like, "Whoa, it's so dark when the sun's
it
not
says,
shining."
what should I press? Like confirm, not now.
Oh, I would say not now. Yeah, I think I always use Chrome. I always want you to use theirs. Chrome just works because they save everything for you.
I just have a question for you. What do you use for like slides?
I use PowerPoints.
Oh, like
The PowerPoint images of slides. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because I don't think people use Google Slides.
Oh yeah, it's probably also PowerPoint though. Like you could email it. Do you have your phone? It'll ask
This
you to
is
confirm
so annoying.
on YouTube.
Like, it's cool.
Yeah, Xenia Glass. You told me this. Okay.
Okay. Can I just sit here? Or?
Yeah, is this catching it at least so it can show the audience? Is there anybody signed in? You gotta answer their questions.
Okay. So This was my experience at Xenia Glass and Lock. So my feelings, first I was just like uncertain if they were even able to help me or not, or like take me serious, because the key does say it cannot be copied. And I thought it was going to be like kind of not expensive, but like more expensive than it was, especially because the key at Central State costs $350. So
that's a lot of money. That makes you not want to lose it, I guess. Ever.
Yes. So my reactions. So it was a good experience. We were greeted and helped when we walked in. It's like very small, so we were like the only people there. We were only there for about like 10 to 15 minutes max, which was like surprising because like I didn't know how long it was. I didn't know if it was gonna take a day. Like I didn't know how much it was gonna take. Um, and the best part about it was only $5. They were all like white middle aged working people. We were the only black people there, and also since we were so like we didn't know nothing about this, we were like asking questions, and the man that helped us like answered. I think we asked like just about copying keys because we never did that before.
Yeah, it's expensive, but $350 is not the price.
Yeah, it wasn't even expensive. It was $5.
That is nice. They hooked you up.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we were greeted and helped. It was small and like the place was full of like machines, so it was kind of like not cramped, but like but overall my experience was really good because they do other stuff than keys. They do a little bit of everything as far as like home. They fix windows, glass, So it was just like a lot of material in a small building.
Mm-hmm.
But they were just super friendly. Everyone had on like business casual clothing. So yeah, stereotypes. So we are located in Xenia, which is a small white town in Ohio. Those tend to be old fashioned. Stereotypes associated with them, like racist. I've heard about some racist experience from some of my friends here. So yeah, it was like that was, a little bit of a concern, but fortunately for us, they didn't fit those stereotypes at all. They were extremely helpful. Prejudices, like I said, small white towns in Ohio tend to be racist, but we were treated like any other paying customer. They weren't prejudiced towards us at all.
That's nice.
Difference in communication and culture. There was a difference, but our differences didn't make any difference in our service. So the establishment had older white people in business clothing, and we were like young black girls and like what young black girls wear. So that alone differentiated us. But yeah, as I said, they treated us like any other paying customer. So it was really a good experience. Although it was in Xenia, Ohio.
Right.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Did they put "do not copy" back onto your key?
It was, yes.
Does it still say that? I know. I wonder.
They didn't actually.
But they might not notice when you turn it in. They'll be like, "Do they
It
have
was
a number on
different
it?"
Color. Like
that's what I'm wondering. Does it have like? Will they notice and try to charge you the $350 when you turn it back in?
Yes, they need the exact key. So I think with my friend, she was like she lost her key in her dorm. She just couldn't locate it.
Okay.
But she needed a key to get inside of her dorm. So when we moved in like December and we have to pack all of our stuff up, she said she'll like most likely find it.
Okay, good.
But the key, it's an exact copy, like it works, but it doesn't cannot be copied. It doesn't have like, the room number. It's like our keys at Central State, they're like bronze, and the key that they gave us was like silver. And it had like their little logo on it.
Really?
Like, yeah, some kind of logo. It wasn't
I'm wondering if there's a way to get another copy somewhere else exactly the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But
our locksmith here cuts them.
Mm.
Did you know that we actually have a locksmith on campus? So
yeah, because I had to pay for mine.
Right. And I wonder if he'd probably still be a pain, but like, could you ever be so kind for him to copy it? You'd have to get past their like secretary or something.
Yeah. Because for when I had to get my key, I just had to like put in a statement from my RA, and then they just gave me one. But
$350
charged to my account. Yep.
Is it still sitting there?
Yes.
But you owe it until you can't register until you pay it, probably.
Right.
Probably.
But it's like in the tuition, like it's not like cash.
Right.
But yeah, it's still sitting there.
It still spends the same.
It's still sitting there. Yeah.
It's a pain. I mean, I guess it would be your student loan if you get any student loans. Okay.
It's still nasty.
Yeah.
$350.
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay.
But yeah,
Well, good.
that was my experience.
That's good that you were able to make it through there. Does that make sense how to do you already know, where do you think you're going to observe?
You said it was the Chick-fil-A, right?
Yeah, you can. I found out yesterday, I went there myself for the first time ever yesterday. It's 4.5 miles at Cedarville, Ohio. They don't serve breakfast. I was so mad. As I went up there and I talked to the cops up there, and they're like, yeah, they don't open until 10:30 because they don't serve breakfast. I'm like, well, I'm a vegetarian. That's all you can eat at Chick-fil-A as a vegetarian. So I went to a coffee shop and paid like $4 for a egg sandwich. I feel like Chick-fil-A is only like $2.50. I don't know. So cool. All right, I'm gonna close. It actually opened for you at least, right? So close that. Show you guys. Oh yeah, are you familiar with a lot of these different letters? Are you having trainings yet for your?
I don't think so, actually.
So we're doing trainings here, and a lot of them are kind of new. So you've got LGB.
I didn't realize that it was that. I didn't know what that means.
But there's a lot more than there used to be, because there's also, this was the first round, LGBTQ. Now there's IA and
Yeah.
is it big enough? And then also different things. I was going to go, gosh, am I really only a third of the way through this? It says 15 out of 47 are done. So there's a few different training things for diversity. Have you seen that many different flags? Really?
Like all of them except the one with the triangle.
Right. I forget what that one is, but
Yeah.
this is like a new one that they had put out. They were trying to train. This one's supposed to be the same frontwards and backwards, so you can flip it. I guess that one is, no, it's not. It's close. So it was a training they had us do, and different things that we would have to get caught up on, because the guy in this video, I found out, is actually a year younger than me, because he's doing like the training for Ohio Mental Health Advocacy Coalition, MHAC. Different things as social workers we can do with our intake forms and stuff on our assessments as a social worker, how to be respectful, asking questions. They have us do. They'll probably ask me for. I don't know when we'll see that. He's supposed to have one last video, but we can only click next when you go through all 5 seconds. Oh yeah, there we go. Hit the play button. So, well, this one's a little longer.
We're ready now to move into the next phase of this. And this is LGBTQ plus community differences, talking about communities within our community. So I want to focus in now on understanding what culture is and understanding what subculture is generally. So there always exists a dominant culture. And that is an organization that provides its members with boundaries and guidelines that shape the behaviors of the members. All right. There is a dominant culture in the United States. That dominant culture is white, cisgender, heterosexual men. It should come as no surprise to anyone in this presentation. Right? Now, the thing to remember is that there's also a dominant culture within the LGBTQ plus community. That, also unsurprisingly, is typically a cisgender, white, and male. Those dominant cultures have created guidelines that shape the behaviors of its members. Now, below that are subcultures, and subcultures develop with the core values of the dominant culture and additional values unique to the subculture. They're formed when a group of people within an organization share a situation, problem, or experience that's unique to them. brought about by differences in geography, life experiences, identity, etc. So within the LGBTQ plus community, we know that we have subcultures, right? Part of that is simply based in the acronym. L, lesbian, gay, bisexual, or G, gay, B, bisexual, T, transgender, Q, queer, plus, taking into account all of the other letters that make up the community, make up what I would refer to personally as the queer community. But then there are also people's life experiences. Were they discriminated against? Did they grow up in a rural area, an urban area, a suburban area? Did they grow up in a faith? Did that faith have values that supported or stigmatized LGBTQ identities? All of these help to create these different subcultures, but it's also important to understand that we've developed these over the course of time in response to these differences, and they're constantly evolving. So I want to take a second here, and I want to show you a video. And this is a video narrated by Billy Porter, and it's going to talk about the history of queer political activism, and it's going to give us a baseline to understand the history around some of the subcultures that have developed. So let's take a look at that video now.
You're familiar with Stonewall, of course, but what about the activist movements throughout history that haven't received as much attention? Let's take a look at some of the more obscure political actions that have also changed the course of queer history. A brief history of overlooked queer political actions, narrated by Billy Porter, illustrated by Amit Greenberg. 1920s, the Society for Human Rights. When U.S. Army soldier Henry Gerber was stationed in Germany from 1920 to 1923, he saw the rise of homophile organizations, as gay rights groups were once called. Upon returning to Chicago in 1924, Gerber founded the Society for Human Rights, the first gay rights organization in America, which also produced the country's first gay rights newsletter called Freedom and Friendship. Shortly after the newsletter was disseminated, Gerber's home was raided by the police. He was arrested, his papers confiscated, he lost his job and life savings. The society fell apart. Later, Gerber relocated to New York City and began writing activist works again, this time under the pen name Parasex. He continued his activism until his death in the 1970s. The Mattachine Society was formed in the early 1950s by Harry Hay. It started in California, but quickly spread across the country, providing a space for gays and lesbians to gather and discuss their experiences. This was radical at a time when few Americans were out. In some places, it was illegal for homosexuals to gather at all. The organization declared homosexuals were an oppressed minority, that developing a community was essential to overcoming oppression, and that anti-gay legislation in the US needed to be overturned. However, in 1953, the group's radical ideas were traded for more accommodationist ones, which stated that homosexuals should adapt to, not combat, heterosexual lifestyles in order to obtain equality. The Mattachines dissolved at the end of the 1960s when gay rights activism became more aggressive. The Daughters of Bilitis was formed in 1955 in San Francisco by Phyllis Lyon and Del Martin. It was named after poet Pierre Louis's The Songs of Bilitis, in which Bilitis was said to be a female lover of Greek poet Sappho. It was one of the first lesbian organizations ever established in the US. Originally assembled as a meeting place for lesbians, the group also held public forums to teach people about homosexuality and provided support to partnered, single, and parenting lesbians. The Daughters of Bilitis shut down in the early 1970s, but is known for its commitment to fostering understanding in and out of the lesbian community. The riot at Gene Compton's cafeteria in San Francisco's Tenderloin neighborhood happened in August 1966. A policeman grabbed a drag queen in an attempt to arrest her, and she threw a cup of coffee in his face. A riot began almost immediately, with glass windows smashed by thrown sugar shakers, tables flipped, and cutlery thrown. These particular Compton's customers had had enough. Cops had been arresting drag queens, gay hustlers, and transgender women at the 24-hour eatery regularly for cross-dressing, for obstructing the sidewalk, or for any reason they could find to throw them in jail. After the incident, the diner banned trans women, and the Tenderloin's largely queer community rebelled, picketing the establishment and breaking its new windows. The Compton's riots received no coverage at all in any of San Francisco's publications, but today is recognized for its importance as one of the first queer uprisings against police brutality. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence first emerged in 1979 when 4 gay men, bored with the sameness of San Francisco's Castro district, put on retired nuns' habits. Realizing their presence could bring joy and initiate social change, they draw attention to queer discrimination and religious hypocrisy, promote safe sex, and educate against the dangerous effects of drug use, all the while raising money for AIDS, LGBTQ+, and community-related causes. Chapters have since expanded across the globe. Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or STAR, was organized by queer historical icons and self-described drag queens Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Both had been present at Stonewall and active in the Gay Liberation Front, and decided to organize homeless trans youth, drag queens, sex workers, immigrants, and low-income people in New York. Rivera and Johnson were homeless themselves and saw STAR as a way to help provide shelter for the people they knew as their children. They bought a building, fixed it up, provided shelter and clothes for people who came through. STAR grew from New York to Chicago, California, and even England, and lasted approximately 3 years before it shut down. While the riots at Stonewall are, of course, important, their story starts decades before and continues today. Thanks to people like Henry Gerber, Phyllis Lyon, Sylvia Rivera, Larry Kramer, and countless others, queer activism still has a loud and forceful voice in and out of the community. We owe so much to their legacy. We continue to speak out in honor of the strides they made for us and the lives we hope to change in the future.
Excellent. So what we want to talk about right now is with this sort of context. So we have a historical context, right? We know that differences within the LGBTQ plus community have existed prior to Stonewall, right? At this point for more than 100 years. Each group, even if it folded, still had value sets that it conveyed to its members. And there are people that still hold the values and feel that the values of those groups are important. This has done great work for our community. It creates conversation, it creates a sense of community. Sometimes it creates division. People argue over what is important. Is it more important to focus on this issue, or that issue? And it's important to recognize that when those divisions take place, they may seem messy, but it's important in order for the community to continue to grow and evolve. It's also important to remember that these types of discussions are not unique to the LGBTQ plus community. In Ohio, there was testimony had in the State House about vaccinations against the COVID-19 virus. And one of the folks that testified raised eyebrows and ended up with other interviews because he said that the current Pope of the Catholic Church at the time was not the legitimate Pope. That highlighted differences within the Catholic Church. So these differences, these subcultures, these different sets of values that evolve over time that can benefit a community even through division are not unique to the LGBTQ plus community.
All right, so I wanted to get that in, knowing our reaction to diversity, just like when you went and, um, did the key experience and fixing with that, and um, how our prejudices going into it and how our reactions, knowing that we can see a social work client from every race, religion, gender, and every experience, and how are we going to react when they come to us. Now, we are allowed to have our own prejudices and premeditated thoughts or whatever, like things that we grew up with, things that our family brought us up with. That's just natural, that's normal. Now, what gets us in trouble is when we speak them out loud or act on them or do things that is, harmful. Obviously, it's illegal to discriminate. Like if you said, well, that's, a gay person, I was brought up with my religion that I'm not going to help gay people. It's going to be better in a sense. Any client that you may or may not, it could be other controversial issues like marriage, abortion, fostering illegal immigrants, and letting your supervisor at least just know that you would prefer that somebody else see the client. You know what I mean? That you would love to serve the ones you're comfortable with, and you talk to your supervisor about it. Like that's one option. Some people know that they had a experience growing up and may become triggered one way or the other. But those are some of the things that show up for us, that kind of can show, our own alcoholism, for example. Maybe somebody grew up with a bad experience with an alcoholic and they have a hard time. They're not going to go into addiction recovery specifically per se, but might have a hard time treating or working with the alcoholic, so to speak. So I don't know. How are you?
I agree.
Okay. Any thoughts, ideas, opinions?
No.
Okay. So, and that's kind of finishing up chapter 11, some of the diversity stuff that comes up. I'm trying to think of other diversity things like poverty, even growing up in a food desert. Can't think of other. Then in chapter 12, we kind of dip into mental health next. And it is almost half of our social work jobs. It's 43%. So health central to social functioning, social work and health systems. It's 43% of social workers are employed in a health system. So a lot of the jobs now, and that was 2012, so after the Affordable Care Act. Before then, there weren't as many jobs, but after the Affordable Care Act, there's like thousands of social work jobs. In fact, there's 39,000 social workers in just the state of Ohio. It's huge. Lots of funding for it. Lots of funding for you guys to go to graduate school in it too, believe it or not. Like UC just wrote another large $1.5 million grant that give everyone $10,000 to go to their MSW program. Miami University is also writing another grant. It's like $900,000 for folks to go to their MSW program because there's a need. So the social work and health systems, the examples are the medical settings like public health, primary health care, hospital-based services, or even long-term care. So there's always a social worker in a hospital. They probably pays the best too. So I feel like hospital social work jobs pay the highest. Maybe just because there is a lot of funding since the Affordable Care Act. There's also genetic stuff. So believe it or not, there's genetic services. They're expanding. In fact, there's a master's degree at the University of Cincinnati that's literally just called genetic counseling. And it's not too connected to mental health counseling, but it's closely connected. And it's like counseling a person if they're pregnant, that they know what genes they're passing on, if they're at risk for maybe even having somebody with trisomy 21, Down syndrome, or cerebral palsy, and then counseling the family if I think in the past they even used to try to do blood tests. So like if you're too closely related to somebody that you don't want to procreate with them, if that makes any sense, because it can cause like genetic deformities. And I think that's what happened in England where they were all like procreating with each other. So they got that blue blood thing or something else. That was an interesting, I don't know, maybe you guys know more about that than I do, but you're supposed to like expand your genetics and like kind of go outside of, not be too closely related. And there's always jokes that come from it, but there's truth to be told in that also. So social work and genetics, some genetics issues involve many fields of practice, like child protection, occupational social work, adoption, mental health, and then even addictions. I can tell if you have the addictions gene. I wanted to get half through this for the beginning of the week and the other half for Thursday. Also, now there is in the medical healthcare social work stuff, social work and AIDS. And that's a big one is 34 million persons worldwide have HIV/AIDS. For ideas, our U.S. population is only about 340 million. So 34 million is about 10% of what we have in the U.S. It is a lot. Some of the issues are fear, isolation, victimization. I remember when it came out in the 80s because AIDS was brand new in the 80s and it was freaky. People were like, they wouldn't even like drink after you. They'd be like scared. It was like when COVID started, really. And it was
So it just appeared like.
Yeah, it really did. Like COVID. So part of me wonders if they were tinkering with something in the lab like Dr. Fauci did with the COVID virus too. But because what's that?
What's the O word there?
Ostracism. So you're ostracized like an ostrich, I guess, puts its head in the ground. I forget why.
Oh, to like be isolated.
Right. So you ostracize yourself. You like put your head and buried it. I wonder where. That is a good question, though. Is I feel like it comes from the word ostrich, but why do they put their head in the ground? Maybe they think they're protected that way. I feel like that's literally where the word came from.
Why is it just?
Like isolation.
Yeah.
Here you go. Exclusion from a society or group. Ancient Greece, temporary banishment from a city by popular vote. Do ostriches really put their heads in the ground?
Dude, I don't know.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Huh?
I'm gonna look at it.
I know. I want to look it up now too. So yeah, they basically banish you. Why is it ostracism? I don't know. Maybe that was just a way for us to like learn it as a kid, but I'm curious now.
They put their head in sand.
They do?
Yeah.
Is it
when
the-
they sense danger or can't run away from something.
Which is not good. Does that one protect you either?
Right.
So I guess they're stupid. I don't.
It says it will flop to the ground and remain still, attempting to blend in.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Ostracized. I don't know. I always thought that's where the word came from, but I could be making it up. Sometimes they give you like the background to it, but maybe it's in Wikipedia because they like to put lots of stuff in there. Anger at the citizen was preemptive. Word continues to be used for various shunning. So you're shunned. Huh. I don't know. Maybe they're.
Isn't the name derived from something, but not ostriches?
Okay.
It was like Greece, ancient Greece.
So maybe it was a way for us to remember it as kids, and that's why.
Yeah, in Greek, broken pottery.
Hilarious. Yeah, I know. I want to keep going down where there's like a gosh, they really have this much stuff about the
About one word.
yeah. Apparently. But what's that?
I was just reading.
I know I'm kind of cruising quickly. I want to find what I want to find, but it might have been just like, oh, it's in several animal species as well as modern humans. Social psychologist act of ignoring or excluding an individual or groups without necessarily involving acts, verbal or physical abuse. Silent treatment? I don't know. Yeah, that was maybe how they got us to remember it. So, sorry, you just asked a simple question too. It's ostracism. And yeah, so have you guys seen the movie where there's a gentleman in Texas that sells all the drugs to fix AIDS in, I almost have to search those keywords, I don't know what to call it. Man sold drugs to prevent HIV in Texas. Will that find the movie?
If you put movie after it, maybe.
Ah,
I
okay.
don't know.
Okay. That's probably true. So, movie. Dallas Buyers Club. It's a good movie. If you guys ever have a chance, you should watch it. Here's what it's about. It's actually very empowering.
Have you ever skipped voting for judges on election day? This November,
And I bet
don't.
you it's on.
I see you found our stash. I'm Dr. Savard. Why don't you go ahead and hop up here for me?
Because he's a very hetero male here, and then he friends a drag queen. It's an interesting movie.
Oh,
Is that Matthew McConaughey?
we saw something
He got beat up.
which concerned us.
In the
on
movie.
Your initial blood work, so we ran some additional tests.
Some blood tests.
He lost a bunch of weight for it,
Wow.
obviously.
I don't use drugs.
We didn't test your blood for drugs.
I'm good. Okay, now you're out of business. That's right.
Oh, Jennifer Connelly.
Oh. It's a good movie.
You've tested positive for HIV, which is the virus that causes AIDS. You fucking kidding me? Some of that fucking rock cocksucking Hudson bullshit. Mr. Woodruff, have you ever used intravenous drugs? Have you ever engaged in homosexual conduct? Did you say homo? Yeah. That's what she said. You fucking kidding me? I ain't no faggot, motherfucker. I don't even know no fucking faggot. Look at me. What do you see? Huh? The goddamn rodeo's what you see. Mr. Woodruff, I fucking watch you. Mr. Woodruff, just. No, I can't do shit. You speak fucking English, motherfucker. Call me a motherfucking faggot. I'll whip your fucking ass, boy. Your T cell count is down to 9. A healthy person has between 500 and 1,500.
White blood
Frankly,
cells.
We're surprised you're even alive. Surprise is, you made a fucking mistake. Must have mixed up my blood samples with some daisy puller or something. That shit ain't me.
We ran the blood test several times. Here's some information about HIV and AIDS that you might find informative. These are my test results.
Mr. Woodruff, you can listen to me for a moment. I know this can be a very scary thing, and you're probably feeling overwhelmed right now. But what we would like to do is to impress upon you the gravity of your situation. Based on your health, based on your condition, based on all the evidence we have, we estimate you have 30 days left to put your affairs in order. Every day. I'm sorry. Fuck this. Shit. Fuck every day. Fuck this. Let me give you a little news flash. There ain't nothing out there can kill fucking Ron Woodruff in 30 days.
So I thought that was a trailer, but it's a good like reaction of like somebody being told that they're going to die in 30 days, and maybe I should do trailer. How much weight do you think McConaughey lost for that? He looks pretty skinny, I think.
40 pounds?
Right, yeah. And that was the 80s, so that would be, that's kind of how people would react to AIDS in the 1980s. As it was like a death sentence. Now,
How long did it take him to recover?
what's that?
This is not just a day thing. Like,
You were saying how long did it take to realize? That started coming about in the 90s. Like they would test us in college all the time for that, like regularly. So it was probably 92, 93, 94, 95.
wow.
Yeah, it took,
15 years later.
yeah, but I feel like AIDS took like, it was 86, 87 to 88. Like it was really just a blood transfusion first in the early 80s, and then it started making its way out. It spread quickly in the gay community. That's why I thought it was just a gay thing. But here's the trailer. It's a wild movie though, so you gotta, it might be rated R, so prepare yourself.
You have tested positive for HIV. Mr. Woodruff, we estimate that you have approximately 30 days.
And newsflash for y'all, ain't nothing out there can kill Ron Wood in 30 days. The drugs, they just released their testing, and I know this hospital's worth the size and need it.
It doesn't work that way, Mr. Woodruff. Where are you going?
They got good meds out of Mexico. That's better than what you can get here in the States.
You look great.
I actually look amazing. You've got a fortune off of this. Stop distribution.
Anything to declare, Father?
No, sir, not all. I do realize importing illegal drugs for sales are very serious offenses. They're not illegal. They're merely unapproved.
I've been looking for you, Lone Star. I feel better. I wanted to thank you.
So, unless you got cash or new clients for me, I'm busy.
You got enough for 20 of us?
Welcome to the Dallas Buyers Club.
You treating these people?
How they treat themselves.
Ronnie, we got 2 new customers.
You call me Ronnie again? I'm gonna use this here, that section you've been hoping for.
Hi.
TJ, it's Rayon.
Give me a good check. Give me a good check.
Once you got HIV, you're married to it. When it goes the way that I prescribe, you are gonna live longer and enjoy the time you got here more.
I have a court order permitting us to confiscate any and all non-FDA approved drugs or supplements. Nothing more than a common drug dealer. Break with the rest. That's one thing for me not to like you. Why can't you be a better friend yourself? Don't back down. Mr. Woodruff, what is going on?
People are dying. It would be a pain in your ass. I'm 6 feet under, big boy.
Even the best of them all.
America's Most Wanted.
Even the best of them fall.
What's the woman doctor's name you said?
I know her name, like real life, is Jennifer Garner.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a real, I'm pretty sure that was a real movie based on real events too. So
he got drugs to treat people with HIV. How?
He saw the, what would you call it, racket that the pharmaceutical industry was putting out and selling people, and fought it himself, went to Mexico, and I guess it
And it was like, when he sold it, it was like more affordable.
it would have been, yeah. So it wouldn't be like having to come up with $1 million to save your life. It would have just been, and it was real, the real story of Ron Woodruff, AIDS patient in the mid 80s. So brand new. And it was when treatments were under researched, the disease was not understood, highly stigmatized. Part of the experimental AIDS treatment movement, he smuggled unapproved pharmaceutical drugs into Texas for treating his symptoms and distributed them to fellow people with AIDS by establishing the Buyers Club. So they treated themselves. He would sell it to you. He wouldn't treat them. And facing opposition to the FDA, as that's who has to approve it. 2 fictional supporting characters, Eve and Rayon, were composite roles created from interviews with transgender AIDS patients, activists, and doctors presidential. So it spread quicker in the gay community is normally with men with anal sex, there would be bleeding. And then it was blood to blood transference. So it can obviously be transferred always with vaginal sex and semen and I think spit, but no, that was just a myth that everybody thought if you like breathed or spit on them like COVID that you would get it. So I think it was really only mucus, blood, and a few others. So, and it was a real life story. So it was 85, and he was just like a heterosexual male electrician, and he did bull riding and stuff like that. And so if you have a chance, I bet you it's free on like Netflix or Amazon Prime or one of those. And yeah, that's kind of your HIV and AIDS story. So those feelings, powerlessness, ostracization, like the guy he punched in the grocery store was one of his best friends who like never talked to him again, stuff like that. As back then they truly thought if you had AIDS, you were gay. So there was no like combating it at the time. They were like, no, and that was, I guess it was either 85 or 86. So in social work, our ethics, you have the right to know, privacy, getting tested, duty to treat, and then mandatory treatment. Social work response is case and cause advocacy. So kind of like what he did there to try to find solutions for these guys to not die. Even though he didn't obviously like gay people, he still worked with them and treated them. So that was a good example of like him getting over his stigma. Like, okay, I don't have anybody here but these guys, and I better get over my issues of, he wasn't a social worker. He was an electrician, but it was this guy, Matthew McConaughey from the Dazed and Confused. He'd say, all right, all right, all right. So I'm stopping halfway through that chapter as we'll do the other half for Friday, but any questions? Lichtenberg said, sorry I'm late. He's going to present. What did I miss? He's confused and dazed. Oh, I think he's making jokes now. So that is it. You can watch it on YouTube again if you missed anything. Thank you for presenting.